Hi, I'm Bess Rocklitzer, president of the David Bermant Foundation. I am so pleased to introduce our guest today, Ann Niemetz. Ann is a media artist. She is the senior lecturer of the Media Arts and Design program for Victoria University of Wellington. She is solely responsible for all of the current photo and video documentation of the David Bermant collection. She is a dear friend, and she has contributed to our foundation in countless ways over the years. I am very excited to hear what she has to say today. Welcome, Ann. Welcome all to our fourth episode. Yes, our fourth episode of Color, Light, Motion, created and hosted by Victoria Vesna. Please enjoy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm particularly excited and even emotional about this session that we're going to have with Ann Niemetz, because today is graduation day at UCLA, and it makes me think back to when Ann was a graduate student. We worked together during her studies. We went to the farm together with the graduate students, which I was doing annually while the exhibitions were there. And then slowly we started documenting, because there was actually very, very little there. We had slides and some VHS tapes, and actually David Bermant said, only when it's full screen will I be agreeing to have the video collection online. And we thought, full screen, like, when is that going to happen on the internet? No way. Well, here it is. So Anne actually went back many, many times, and not only was documenting the collection, but she understood and she got in touch with the whole feel of the community. It's an experience. It really, truly was a kind of a journey where you journeyed from, for us, from LA, driving down and getting into San Ynez to this farm with all these animals. And when Susan was there, it was just, you know, like an absolute farm outside, and then inside, like you just enter into this time zone with these incredible pieces that are lineage. So to see, in a sense, my own lineage, to see students, and then the students becoming mentors, and now Anne is a mentor and a professor in New Zealand. It's just so heartwarming and beautiful. And I really welcome you so warmly from New Zealand, where you went for a short visit and never came back. And now everybody's jealous that you're in the most green place on earth. So welcome, Anne, and we're all so excited about your talk.
Thank you very much, Victoria. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks everybody for joining us. Kia ora from New Zealand. Should I share my screen now? Okay, I'll just get going here. And hopefully that you're seeing
this. All good, just make it full screen. The PowerPoint, there we go.
Yeah,
perfect.
There we go.
Perfect.
Okay, great. So I'm very grateful to be invited today. And I have prepared a presentation for you that I would like to suggest complements the previous more art historic lectures in this series about David Bermant and the collection. And the previous lectures have been very insightful, really interesting. But I'm going to instead recount more of a personal experience, and with that, hopefully shed a very intimate light on the David Bermant collection. So as you heard in the intro, I'm the person who made most of the videos and photos on the website. And I started documenting the collection back in 2006. In some ways, my presentation is intended to be a documentation of the documentation, so behind the scenes. I found and digitized old DV tapes to be able to show you unseen footage today. And that was actually not an easy task because I had to find the old equipment to be able to digitize these old tapes. And I found out it's just as frustrating as it was 15 years ago. But that was a really interesting process because I looked through hours and hours of footage. And it also, although DV is like, small format, all this footage is still there. Whereas with digital technology, you only keep the bits you like, I think. And so, so that was quite interesting. And it was actually quite a challenge to put this presentation together because I feel, well, I'm grieving the loss of the place, the experience, the collection. And even though I'm grateful that the collection was taken on by the Butler Institute, for me personally, now these works are more out of reach than they were before. So it will definitely be a nostalgic presentation today. It's been an intense trip down memory lane to put it together. I should also preface this presentation by mentioning that I actually never met David Bermont in person. I never had the honor to meet him, but I met many other people that are involved in the collection, and I'll be talking about those as well today. And the other aspect that makes it difficult to present is the sheer amount of works in the collection, and it's so hard to choose. And when you choose one, you feel like you're being unfair to the other works that should also be mentioned. So as Victoria said, I was first introduced to the collection in, I assume, about 2004, I'm not exactly sure. And I was a master's student at UCLA at the time, and I'd like to share what it was to visit. So you drove from LA into astonishing, beautiful country. It's like the promised land, away from the traffic of LA and the nastiness of the city. And after about 2 hours, you would arrive at this gorgeous property in gently sloping hills. And even if you didn't have any expectations of what you would encounter, I think you were still surprised when you arrived, finding basically a quite domestic setting. So here's the farmhouse. And after you'd arrived, you'd be welcomed by a very gracious hostess, Susan Hopmans, the widow of David Bermont, who lived in this house. And then you entered the gallery, and you would find this light-filled space full of different works, full of kinetic art, and you would go and explore. Here we have the view from the other perspective, and back then there was seating in the gallery as well. You see different pieces. And just my first, I was so baffled my first time when I was there. So you'd see a Marcel Duchamp, a Tanguy, a real Tanguy, Namjoon Paik, the father of video art, Jenny Holzer, Peter Fogel with his interesting sound installations. So these were immediately names I recognized, and that made it very clear to me that David Bermont was very serious about his collecting, and that he went deep down into the rabbit hole of kinetic art. So after exploring the gallery for a bit, you would probably then go outside and have a look around the property, because there was so much to discover. Were little artworks hidden all over the place, sculptures here, George Rhodes. This is an installation by the Bachet brothers. And here a sculpture on the side of the house by Joy Wolke. And if you went around to the back of the house, you would find this moving rock, a pretty unusual installation by Okamoto. This rock moved slowly back and forth on a rail, and was perhaps my first hint that David Bermont had a great sense of humor and sometimes appreciated a bit of nonsense. This moving rock and many other works of the collection needed maintenance to function. And the person in the background who made sure everything was working was Chris. Chris is Susan's brother, and he would regularly visit and maintain and repair anything that needed attention. He had a little workshop at the back of the gallery full of tools and stuff. He was the technical wizard that kept the place running, but he liked to stay invisible to visitors. I really wish I had filmed Chris and his workshop, but all I could find is this very short clip in which you see him briefly doing his best to get out of the shot. And we'll play that now. And that was Chris. The dog took a bit longer to get out of the shot. And there we go. So Chris was really essential to the collection. Oops, sorry. So continuing the tour around the property, your professors would tell you about the collection in David, Vermont, and I've got an excerpt of that as well.
Howard Wise, who had a gallery in New York and was one of the first ones showing and trying to sell kinetic art. And so Howard Wise and him became friends, and he actually got introduced to Namjoon Paik and all these artists. So every artist that's in there practically, except for some that are of earlier time, he actually had a relationship with. And he had really funny stories.
Yeah, so that was Victoria giving the tour. Erky was there as well. You don't see him on this video. And this video where the groups stand is actually a very special spot in front of the house. It's the spot where David Vermont's memorial was placed, which is this object here, right next to an artwork by Clyde Lynds called The Moonstone. And this is one of several works of Clyde Lynds in the collection, which displays slowly changing lights using fiber optics. That means the surface of the stone changes slowly over time, displaying different symbols and patterns. So very gorgeous resting place. And as the sun set and the daylight went away, you went back inside into the gallery to explore it again at nighttime. And the place would turn into this dazzling, mesmerizing place of light, sound, motion. It was a playground of kinetic art, real magic. And I do have one video of a tour from 2006 featuring the former students of the UCLA Design Media Arts. And this video also gives you sort of an impression of how wild it was to be in the space together with a group, and you hear like all these noises and excitement. So we'll watch that. Oh, here's some photos first.
Is that why it's burned over there?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's old. It's the original. You know, the time. Boom, boom. So this is. Honestly speaking, this is something you only see in black and white photos in some book about history of media art. But you never ever anywhere get the chance to try this classic work because it's here. Kind of also very much influenced by Moholy-Nagy and his Nicholas Scherzer, who's now been rediscovered very much after the big exhibition in Paris. The big exhibition in Paris, big show.
I feel like you can buy.
This is Wening Chai, who was really one of the greatest. I wonder if this is a...
Stuff that you can tell.
I read about him.
Yeah, he's very important. Jay, you can play this.
Okay.
Okay, now we just need to right back.
Is that architect working?
Sorry?
Okay, so the last work you see in the video was very finicky one. So sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't work. It was certainly an audience pleaser, and I think of the work that on my first visit certainly impressed me the most. And that is David Durlach's Dancing Trees. It's impressive on many levels. It's a physically very big machine with technical, impressive functionality. In fact, it's an unusual jukebox. And under the glass cover is a tray filled with iron dust. And this tray of dust is activated by a grid of magnets, which Durlach calls choreographed iron dust. So this tray here, the iron dust would do this little choreography, which makes it looks like they're little dancers just stretching in between the songs. So it's staying warm for the next one. So gorgeous piece of work, but quite finicky, and I'll get back to that later. The other thing that you saw in the previous video of the group walking through the gallery, or what you heard, was this cacophony of sounds, and lots of the clang-clangy songs. So very playful work. Let's just... Oops, sorry, didn't want to do that. So another one of the works that just immediately stood out when you came first to the gallery was this walking step ladder. It was just, it would amble around the gallery, quite an engineering feat. And the other work by Guy Kudu is the installation called Train and Ball, which also is just an eye catcher, things you couldn't ignore, and probably one of some of the first works that you would play with or experience. So let's go back to that.
This is Guy Kudo.
That's an older piece. What year is it?
93.
93? Really?
Yeah, 93.
What is this called?
Now you can tell by the battery too.
Oh yeah, because you heated that, right? But does it still work? New design. Well, I wouldn't know. This is made out of gold.
And then perhaps as final work before you had to leave again and go back to LA, you would lie down on the floor and watch the psychedelic and mesmerizing Lasso by the Sinas, which, yeah, is a spinning object and best seen from directly below. And here you see really, I love this photo of the group lying down together on the floor. And then late at night, you'd have to drive back to LA and your mind was completely blown and you just couldn't believe what you had just experienced. At the time, Victoria was working with Susan, so David Bermont's widow, on the web presence of the foundation. I had visited the gallery once, and I was put forward by Victoria as a student who could video document the artworks for the web. And you have to remember that back then videos on web were tiny. They were tiny little things, and they couldn't be bigger than maybe 2 megabytes because that would be quite hard to download. And so I guess the expectations of these videos was different back then. And, you know, I did later on start remaking videos, but I really wish I could have remade them all from the old ones, the old videos. So I started visiting the gallery, usually over the weekend for 1 or 2 nights. And I would stay in the guest bedroom. I was Susan's guest, and I would spend all day videotaping the artworks. And not only the works in the gallery, there were also a number of public artworks in and around Santa Barbara that needed to be filmed. And here's a picture of the house. You can see a bit more of it. So this long bit is the gallery. And the actual living space wasn't very big. That's the front bit. And here we have the carport and the entrance to the building. There were many artworks in little time, and documenting came with many, many challenges, from lighting problems to unwanted environmental sounds. While I was documenting, I discovered the qualities of some of the more contemplative works that aren't quite as in your face as some of the pieces I already showed. I fell in love with all of Clyde Lynn's works, which all use fiber optics. Back then I didn't really understand what fiber optics are, how they work, but meanwhile I've worked with them myself. And I have to say, even though I now technically understand it, it doesn't make the work any less impressive or magical. Especially this little box here called Saturn's Other Moon took my fancy. For one thing, I think I really enjoy the act of opening something to activate it. And I mean, this box, it's like it has a little universe inside, or maybe it's a navigation tool for a space traveler. It has something incredibly poetic and beautiful about it. And I really, really like this work very much. You can see here a little bit. So there's slight movement inside. Again, fiber optics. And then you could close it again and it would shut off. Another work that I very much liked was Val Noel's Buddha's Abode, consisting simply of a globe that the viewer can open to discover a small illuminated Buddha statue inside. So very simple, very quiet. The interactive works needed a person in the video to demonstrate their functionality. I quickly got tired of being in all the videos myself, so I would invite friends to come along and help me out as models. I want to take this moment to thank all the people who modeled for the videos, which are Douglas Easterly, Christian Bantz, and Uli Schirlinger. The very most difficult work to document was Bill Bell's work, which we can see here. And in the following video, which is an outtake, so not the actual take we used, you will see Douglas Easterly doing his best trying to explain how this installation works. How does this piece work?
It appears to only display vertical illuminated LED lights, but if you turn your head fast enough, you can see through persistence of vision actual city names. I'm not that good at it.
Yes, great.
So this work literally makes you shake your head, and took a while, but the solution to video document it is to try to do exactly the same with the camera without breaking the camera. And so if you shake the camera like crazy in front of it and then slow down the footage, you can see a little bit what you can see with your eyes if you shake your head and sort of see the words out of the corner of your eye. So that's as good as it got in terms of video documenting that particular work. So I'll just stop that. On one visit, Susan had invited Kira Wilcox to come and talk about the artworks and to give a tour so that we could make a video tour. And Susan did not like being on camera, but the truth is she knew every little detail about everything in the collection and David's relation to the artist. She just knew all the details. And her stories about David gave a vivid insight into the character that he was. And here are some of the video clips that didn't make it into the official video tour of Kira and Susan.
I'm going to start here, and then I'm going to go this way. And I'll do Bertoya's pieces, I think, too. How do you pronounce his first name, Susan?
Getulio.
You say Getulio. Do you call him by his first name or his last name?
Well, David would say Getulio Alviani.
He said
And
the
then,
whole name.
You know, at times, or just Alviani.
Because when I heard him talk about it, he often used just first names,
Right.
because he knew the artist.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. Well, this one, I don't think he ever did know him.
He
This
did
was
know
the
him?
first piece that he collected, and that was in 1965, and he bought it in Italy.
Okay. Let's go with that.
Right.
Yeah. She's much better at this
No,
than I am.
no, no way.
The
I want to.
This was, my present wife, Susan, said it was the most influential artist of the 20th century. Naturally, I agree.
Right.
Yeah. And why do you think it's the most important artist of the 20th century?
Well, I just think, well, I loved his work. I just liked everything that he did. I loved his intellect, and I mean, he did everything, every movement that you could think of. He did some piece. He did conceptual art way before anyone ever even thought of calling it conceptual art. He did kinetic art. He did optical art. I mean, this piece is both kinetic and optical. And he did found object art. And
Did he do nude descending a staircase?
yes.
And he did the bicycle.
Kind of like
Yeah.
futurism before the futurists.
Yes, exactly.
And it was
exactly.
so radical.
Yeah, he did Dada before Dada. He did. If you were going to do an artwork that was really a portrait of him, I think that that could be the piece.
Okay, that's really great. Okay, yeah, I love that. Okay.
And if you get too close to it, it will shock you.
Is that true? Okay, that's brilliant.
Stick your
Yeah, okay,
finger in
okay, that's so David.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
Okay, that's really great. Okay, that is funny. Let me just think about it. Drawing.
Here's a bit of trivia I'm curious about. Has anyone ever been injured by the David Berment?
Fortunately not.
She has good
Fortunately
lawyers.
not. Yeah, yeah. No, that when it was in the shopping center, that had glass in front of it, so people couldn't stick their finger in it, and we warn people here that it's not advisable to be inserting your finger. So far, so good. Made art because they had to, that they didn't really have any choice. And I think he felt that way about collecting the art, that he himself had to collect it. It was a passion for him, and he didn't really have any choice. He had to do it. And he never really said it that way, but I know because he talked about the artist that way, and because he did just say, you know, this was just his passion, that it was. And another thing that I think was really important and kind of amplifies that connection that he had to the art was that he would never, ever sell anything that he ever bought. He didn't buy it for appreciation. He didn't for it to appreciate financially. He didn't buy it as an investment. And he was a businessman, so of course that was a big part of his life. But this was different. And he would take pieces and just throw them away. And that used to just drive people crazy. But he would do that. But he would not sell. He would never sell.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. You were such a brilliant businessman, and it wasn't a financial choice.
No.
So this was, in a way, this was David's escape.
It was his,
Or
it was
not
his
really
spiritual path. It was
Spiritual,
his
yeah.
passionate path. And for instance, the Jenny Holzer appreciated so much. It became worth $125,000 when he bought it for what, $5,000 or something. And he would never consider selling it,
Yeah.
even though it wasn't a major piece as far as he was concerned. It was a piece that he liked, but
Yeah. That's so interesting. But in a way, I mean, we won't say this, but I think it bears for, I mean, to write a really great conclusion. This is a spiritual collection. Because
absolutely.
he wasn't overtly religious.
No,
Yeah. Was he baptized? Was he Catholic though?
no,
Was
he's
it?
Jewish.
Okay, he's Jewish. That's
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
yeah.
of course.
Yeah, he had his bar mitzvah and all that, but he was never a practicing
Okay.
Jew in his later life.
Okay.
I mean, especially when he was ill, I would say, well, honey, wouldn't you like to consult with a rabbi or go to the synagogue or something? There's a great one in Santa Barbara. No. No, I'm not interested in any of that. When I see God, I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. There's a lot of things I'm pissed off about.
He's probably still going over his list as we speak. That's so brilliant. Okay.
So these stories of David Vermont, the fact that he was an ultimate patron of the arts, that he collected because he appreciated the art itself, not the financial value, all this made me respect him so much. I wish all art collectors were like this. I got to meet one of the artists in the collection in person, and that was Dustin Schuler. Dustin would tell stories of David's patronage, his generosity, and his love of art. According to Dustin, when you were out and about with David, he would insist on treating you. Now, Dustin made big sculptures. One of his most well-known works is the spindle. And here we see a picture of the model that was in the Vermont collection. And here is the actual installation. So he made really, really big works. And I got to meet him in LA, and it was a wonderful thing. I made a video documentation of his work, The Rainforest, and we became friends. We really connected, and he was a mentor to me. And he was a real character, perhaps a bit like David Vermont himself. And I'm so very grateful, especially for the moral support that Dustin gave me back then in the day. I will show some excerpts of the video documentation of The Rainforest, his work, in which you can get a glimpse of the phenomenon that was Dustin. So I don't think we have time to watch the documentation about the work itself, but the video I'm going to show you now, it's about who Dustin was. Oh, and before I show you that video, sorry, this is a catalog from 2000, an exhibition that Dustin had. And you can see the nail really was his theme, like the spindle nail of the car. The car is stacked on the spindle. And in this catalog, you got a tiny little nail. And if you open it, it says, "In memory of my friend David Vermont. Thanks, Dave." So they were good friends. And here comes the video.
I mean, I call the piece The Rainforest, then it has a subtitle, A Landscape in the Shower. And it is, to me, it is a landscape. So what we have here is an interface between the perceived natural environment and the man-made controls. Totally. Industrial. I love industrial stuff. I used to work in a factory. And I don't want to hide that. I don't want to pretend it's not there, it's not magic or anything. It's all there to see how it works. Although you may not understand how it works, sometimes I don't either. I remember the day I got my wire. I wanted colored wires. Everything's color coded. And so I ordered a whole box, 23 different colors of wire. It was a big deal. It was like getting a box of paints for me. And then I had to make up all my cables out of the wires and wrap them. And that was just apparently the kind of sculpture I like to do now. I didn't know this when I started, but you know, it's just really neat to live with. It's a nice piece to have. That's why I built it. I built it because I thought, God, I'd really like to see this. And the only way I was going to see it is if I built it.
like David, Dustin was very generous. I remember him saying things like, when I get paid, everybody gets paid. And with everybody, he meant all the people that were involved in assisting him with making his artworks or documenting his artworks or supporting him in any way. Sadly, Dustin passed away in the following years. I'm still close with his widow, who I always visit when I return to LA. And here's an adorable picture with his dog Blitz, who then also passed away. I think he missed Dustin too much. That makes me a bit sad, but so in 2007, I moved to New Zealand. I had gotten a job here and I did stay in contact with Susan. I made some DVDs that combined all the documentations, all the videos. And I would do things like provide photos for collections, for catalogs when institutions came to the Vermont Foundation, said, we want to show a picture of your work. Do you have something? That's the kind of thing I would do, but I actually wasn't in contact much after that. And I think there was another person who did a very good, who documented several works and did a very good job. Although I guess he didn't stay in contact with the foundation, unfortunately. So that was after 2007 when I came here. And then unfortunately, Susan also passed away, surprisingly and much too early. May she also rest in peace. It wasn't until 2016 that I returned to the gallery following the invitation of the board, and then being welcomed by Susan's daughter, Bess. And I stayed for another several times after 2016. And the gallery had changed quite a bit. And some artworks had been put in storage and others were brought out of storage. When I documented the collection in 2006, nobody had told me that there were more works in storage. I had no idea. And in some ways I was able to rediscover the collection. And I really wish I just had more time to refresh old videos and to document all the new work. I did some new work. Here's another picture of the gallery. And the challenges had changed. So you can also see there were new walls in here. So the architecture had changed, the setup had changed. And one of the very new, quite adorable challenges were the very vocal chickens right outside of the gallery. So I got quite good at editing out chicken noises out of the videos. But I have to say their eggs were delicious. And besides continuing to document, I also made a user manual for some of the more tricky to operate works, which was hopefully useful for the occasional visitors to the gallery. And I really have to say, I really enjoyed making that manual also because it gave me some time with Chris, who was the one who knew all the tricks as he was the tech wizard. So he would explain to me how things would work and I would then make instructions with pictures. And of course, which installation is at the top of the necessary instructions? It is the dancing trees. And not only, so what I thought, I didn't mention this before, but this is very technically impressive. And it even has a voice that would then, if it didn't work, would say something is very wrong with me. And then you had to do all these things to get it to work. So that's a different perspective on the work once again. And I got to, I had access to the document archive, which had a lot of background information about the collection. And the documents of when works were actually bought first. Now here, this is a document about a single stone by Eric Snell. This is one of the works I never got around to documenting, unfortunately. And I think it would have been quite tricky to do as well. Spending longer time in the gallery than I had previously, I noticed little artworks around the house that were obviously made by the artist as personal gift to David Bermont, because I never saw them listed in the official catalog, such as, and one of these was George Rhodes' Happy Birthday, I believe. And I don't have a good picture, but it is on this picture. It's on the far right here, and it's tiny little marble run. And all it did is play the first notes of Happy Birthday. And this had, must have been in storage because it wasn't in the gallery before, but I do assume that that was more of a personal gift to David. I also became more aware of what a humorous character David must have been, because some of the works are just simply ridiculous. One of these is Yoshiwado's ash can. I also don't have a photo of this one, I wish I did, but basically it was a round trash can with a lid, and when you took off the lid of the trash can, it would play a sound that made it appear as if the trash can was very deep and bottomless. With somewhat mixed feelings, I discovered a new work by Bell Bell that had been brought out of storage, titled Temperance Too Late. So this one here. So when you move your head or shake your camera really quickly in front of it, what do you think you'll see? Well, it is a wine glass. Oh yeah, so George Rhodes and David Bermont must have appreciated each other a lot, because the silliest work in the gallery is by far one of George Rhodes. Susan didn't want this to be listed on the website or documented or in any way, but I did film it anyway. And thankfully I did find the footage on the old tapes, just so I could end my presentation today by revealing the silliest, ugliest, adorable thing in the gallery. Here it is. I don't think it even had an official title. So in summary, being able to experience the collection has been inspirational, life-changing. I'm absolutely grateful to the Bermont Foundation, family, the foundation, Victoria, and everybody else. The playfulness and joy of the work in the collection, the whimsy and the contemplative are things that I miss. And my visits to Santa Ynez are always going to be special memories that I hold dear and close to my heart. Before I say thanks for listening, I want to mention that while the David Bermont collection is no longer in California, Dustin Schuler's amazing art studio still is. Here's a photo of it. And you can spend the night there by booking it on Airbnb. So it is in fact available for you, an experience that I'd like to recommend. You didn't see me ending the talk like that, did you? So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Anne. Sorry I interrupted you before you had your final interesting way to end it. Yes, I think it's actually appropriate because you came back to the idea of the environment and really being immersed in the work and being part of it. And to have that experience, I think, is what was always such a great gift for everybody. So I have just a comment about what you were mentioning that I actually say many times, but I'll repeat it again, that David's collection was not only that he didn't really care about investing and making money with the artwork. And the fact, which Susan mentioned, is that occasionally he would just throw out works. It was all about relationships to the artists. And if he didn't like somebody, he really did not like them. And he would literally throw away their artwork. I've actually witnessed it without naming names, but it was just like a total scene. You know? And you think, oh my God, I mean, at least sell it. No, I don't want to have anything to do with it. And the opposite is true for artists that he really liked and he really felt he was supporting them. He didn't really think in any other way than he wanted to support their work and the relationship that they had, the back and forth. A good example of how this actually contributed to so many that are in the collection to their careers is actually Clyde Lynch, who was one of his absolutely hands-down favorites. He, when you showed in the collection, there's a part, you saw his fiber optic works that are in the plastic. That the big question for David was, hey, could you do this in concrete? Because he wanted it outside and he wanted to show it in his malls or have it as public art. So that challenge actually is what he funded Clyde to figure out. And in the end, this became phenomenal work. This to me is a really important moment of not only supporting, but having a dialogue, which a lot of really good curators or theorists have with artists. It's a back and forth, not just a one-way interpretation.
You're absolutely right. One of Dustin's stories was they were together driving in a car and then parked the car, and Dustin wanted to walk up to the meter and put in some quarters. And David was like, don't you, like, when you're with me, I take care of you. So he was, yeah, he must have been just an amazing patron.
So a question for Bess. Bess, can you join us for a minute? I have a question
Should
for
I
you.
stop sharing?
Yeah, you could stop sharing,
Okay,
sure.
sorry.
So,
Yeah.
Andrew, maybe you can join us too with your video. We'd love to have you join and just reminisce a little if you're up for it. I actually have a question about Clyde Lynch's memorial that's got also the urn. Does anyone know how this came about? Because I never really heard actually if Susan commissioned Clyde to create something, or if David actually already kind of anticipated and wanted to do this. Hey, there's Andrew.
Hi, Andrew.
Oh, wonderful, you joined us finally.
As far as I remember, David arranged it with Clyde.
Actually, the way Clyde actually, he actually suggested it to my dad. He wanted to honor David, and so that was something that Clyde actually suggested to him would be a appropriate resting place in a star.
So everybody, I would like to introduce you to, you probably gathered, the son of David Berman, Andrew Berman, who's been around ever since I came to the farm first time, and that would be 1995 or something. And we've seen each other in many different contexts, but I've been calling on Andrew quite a bit to also ask to fill in the gaps and tell us some of the stories that we don't want to miss or have disappear. So here you just did it. You know, this was a little bit of a mystery for me. I didn't know, there's no documentation of it. Clyde Lynch is very difficult to reach, so we couldn't get more of a story from him, but we're hoping that we can get him also to talk about his work and his relationship with David.
Yeah, so I remember, thank you, Anne, for your presentation. It was really well done and wonderful to have that kind of documentation of the collection. That piece itself, if you recall, is actually in the form of the Star of David to represent my dad's roots. But as was mentioned, yeah, he was not particularly religious in his later life. So got a chuckle out of his comment about having a conversation with God when he got there. But yeah, it's a beautiful piece. It was done just as some of the other pieces, George Rhodes's piece, and Dustin Schuler had created pieces as gifts for DWB, signs of appreciation for all he did for them. And it's really a wonderful thing.
So Andrew, you have quite a bit of the collection that you kind of inherited or got handed down to, right? Oh, there we go.
Yeah. There's one of the pieces right behind me. I
spindle.
just hung it. I didn't do a very good job of it. I hung it too high, but I don't really care. Of Long Ridge Plaza in Rochester, New York, by I think it's C. Han, H-A-N is his name. Actually, I can pull the. Oh, excuse me. H.N. Han is.
Yes,
his
they
name.
hear.
He got the original card out of the gallery. I recognize it.
Nice.
Backwards, I guess. The video camera does it backwards.
No, it's perfect.
No,
It's
Oh, it's
perfect.
okay.
there.
All right.
I got you. Yeah.
And
So
And the-
1976.
the image was hanging right by the entrance.
Yes. Yes, it was.
Mm.
So, and you know, I've been fortunate to have some of the pieces, such as Bess was kind enough to let me have the spindle, the model of the spindle behind me, since I currently manage the shopping centers. That still comes up in conversations when I talk to people about Cermak Plaza in Berwyn, Illinois, Chicago, a suburb of Chicago. People still bring up the spindle and their memories of it, as well as in Hamden, Connecticut, the ghost car parking lot. And actually, I can just pull up a quick photo of that, and I'll share my screen. And I can talk briefly about that. But what's most interesting is I received an email from James Wines last week. He's 89 years old. He's now confined to a wheelchair. But he advised me that they are doing a retrospective on his works, and that the ghost car parking lot will be one of those major pieces that will be incorporated in the collection in some way, shape, or form. So that's very exciting for him. It's really an amazing thing. I'm trying to find my file with art, and I'm just not able to put my hands on it at this particular moment in time. So my apologies on that. I thought I would have it right here. Oh, it's under history. I'm sorry. That's.
So it did it get destroyed or not? The ghost.
Yes. Yes.
It did
Oh,
get
it's
destroyed.
gone?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it got destroyed, which was
Yeah,
really
had to be taken.
devastating.
It fell into if I can find the photos of it, which I will eventually here. Check one other location. The piece fell into a state of disrepair, unfortunately. And so the ownership after my father's passing decided that they did not want to continue to maintain the piece and restore it. So yeah, we removed the piece, the sculpture, and it is being okay. So yeah, there's a video of the ghost car parking lot. That's what I mean about falling into a state of disrepair. But in talking to James, that actually is part of the piece. It just shows that you know, we think we control our environment. We don't. The environment controls us. So as much as we may think that we can build things and they will last forever, they don't. They deteriorate, just like human beings deteriorate over time. So too did his piece. That was actually a part of the sculpture itself. So it's great that you have that video. I'd actually love to get a copy of it. I think that would
Oh,
be
I
something.
just found it. I just Googled it.
I think that would be
I'll-
something we could put up
I'll
on the
share the link.
website. Yeah.
Okay, I'll share the link.
And so, you know,
Oops.
it still comes up in conversation when we talk about Hamden Plaza. People still know the shopping center for the ghost car parking lot. Many people hated it. They despised it. They thought it was an eyesore. They were glad when it was removed, but it became an icon for the shopping center. Just as the spindle behind me became an icon for Cermak. And one just little note on spindle. What is shown as a blue Corvette at the top, second car from the top, actually in real life was a 1980, probably 82, 83, maybe sooner, 1978, BMW 2002. That was David's car. And so Dustin was kind enough to put that car on the spindle, second car from the top at the time. So just a little note of history.
And that's a big deal because Dustin was very particular about his artwork, and it mattered which car was where and what color. So that's a really sweet story.
Yeah.
Very nice. Well, we're going to have a special session with Andrew, where Andrew, you can prepare some of the ideas. We can have a pre-chat and really bring in a lot of these discussions, and maybe even invite people that you would like to share ideas with, and memories, I should say. This is an amazing day today, really, to go down memory lane and just see everybody, and it's so many people passing on, and the cars disappearing, the people disappearing, the malls disappearing, but memories should be preserved, and that's what we're trying to do. And it's wonderful to get these stories, and just it's very touching. You did a beautiful presentation. Thank you.
You did, Anne. I loved it.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you so much. I was really nervous. I don't usually get nervous, but this is, you know, it's close to my heart.
You nailed it.
All right, everybody. So until next time. And
wait. We have Dustin's widow is here, and she said, in fact, David wanted his car at the top of the spindle, but Dustin insisted on the VW cherry on top, backing me up on was important which car where. Yeah.
Wow. We should actually, we can invite Jinshu to join us when we start talking about his work. That would be wonderful. Thank you for that, Jinshu. All right, everybody. Thank you, and have a great rest of Saturday.
Very good. Thank you, Victoria and Bess, for organizing this.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one. Thanks for joining.
Good.
Thank you, Caitlin, for helping out. Bye, Carol.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.